Welcome to Horse Sense in Horse Care, the show dedicated to helping you improve your horse's health care and lifetime performance through common sense preventative maintenance. Watch now as our professionals in whole horse management tell you what to look for to head off trouble and preserve your horse from foal to old. Our specialists will discuss horse care from the ground up with these topics: correct hoof inspection to help avoid future malformations, examining legs and body for proper alignment, checking body balance for better performance, using equine massage therapy for healthy muscle relaxation, correct saddle fitting for a more comfortable ride, proper bridle fitting for mouth protection and ease of control, centered rider balance for better performance and back protection. And now, to help you help your horse, here is your host, Mike Stein, registered journeyman farrier, Phoenix Award winner for research and innovation, member Guild of Professional Farriers, and SHOE Educator of the Year.
On today's show, we're going to have international saddle fitter and massage therapist Ray Morris. We're going to be giving you some tips to help you with maintaining your horse for a lifetime from foal to old. Okay, today we're going to take a look at a horse from the ground up. We're going to start looking at the feet and find some signs as to what we would look at as a farrier that would help us make good decisions as to how to help your horse. Okay, we're going to talk today about horse mechanics from the hoof all the way up through the horse. We're going to use this horse skeleton here to kind of help us to understand some things that go on mechanically with the horse. We're going to start off with the hoof today. Now, during our talk today, I'm going to be talking about some points. I'll talk about the weight-bearing pillows, which are some landmarks on the hoof. We'll show you right now. Each heel would be a weight-bearing pillow, and you can feel up and around the front of the foot. There's a turn point in the hoof that is a weight-bearing pillow. When they talk about the wild horse feet, you'll hear them over and over talking about weight-bearing pillows. On that hoof, that's where these points would be. Another thing, looking at this picture of a hoof, is you notice this foot is about 2/3 frog, 1/3 to the front of the foot. That's about where the base of a foot should be on a normal foot. If your horse is one where the back of the foot and the front of the foot are about half and half off the front of the foot, you've got a foot that's stretched forward. Another thing you'll notice with this foot is the heels point lines up here, the back of the frog here. Okay, a good solid healthy heel should come down and land back here with the back of the frog, with a good big wide healthy frog. If this is the case, this foot is stretched forward. A stretched forward foot from the side will look like this. Now, we're talking about stretched forward. What I mean is this thing is mechanically pulled forward, and the coffin bone may not be in line with the front of the hoof. The coffin bone may be in here, and it probably will be, because the coffin bone's not shaped like this. You can feel this top little bit of the foot, and that's probably about roughly where your coffin bone alignment will be. When this stretches forward, it pulls the heel forward. When that pulls forward, it'll show in the top of the hoof. And that's one point I want to get across to people, to horse owners, that they can pay attention to on the horses. They can look at this, they can see it looking from the side, they can see it looking from the front. And even if you come by and you dress this off, this will still be here. So that's still a stretched forward foot. And also with flares, where you've got a foot that has a flare that migrates out here, that's going to show up at the hairline. If you dress that off, it's still there. And a little bit of how do you get to a good foot that's structurally stable and pressure in the hoof is even all the way around. I know they like to talk about hoof balance, and I don't call it hoof balance a lot, but it's equalizing the pressure in the hoof. If you're looking at a hoof, or if I'm looking at a hoof as a farrier, one thing is looking down here to see where this is. Now, people talk about I need more heel, and you see this foot and you say, oh, it doesn't have enough heel. Well, most of the time if you start measuring and checking, this heel's too long. And I've many a times taken heel off of horses, had them stand in the shoe and bay, and had people say, oh God, how'd you get all that heel on that foot? Well, what happens is this long heel is to a point and it breaks forward. And we'll see that on actual hoofs in a minute. And as it breaks forward, it collapses. That will push the front of the foot forward. Too much pressure out on the dorsal wall will pull the foot forward, will pull the heels right behind it. Following that, one way to find out where these heels are, and even if they match each other, because realize a horse's hoof is very pliable and it can twist. What I would do if I was measuring a hoof to find out the heels, from the apex of the frog to the heel, the apex of the frog to the heel, you can actually measure that. On the front of the foot, you can find these weight-bearing pillows and measure from here to the hairline and here to the hairline. and then you match, these two pillows will be the same, these two pillows will be the same. Now if you've got a twisted foot and you're trimming a foot flat and it is still twisted, you're just perpetuating a twisted foot when you put a shoe on it. So that's one thing we'll have to get under control when we're working with your horse. I've got some actual hoof capsules here, and you can see on this hoof, as I got it in my hand, from the front, this hoof is distorted. Okay, we're going to take a look here at some actual hooves. I've got a few hooves here that are actual horse hooves that are no longer in use at the moment. But if you notice this hoof from the side, it is stretched forward. This does not follow a clean line from the top to the ground. If you notice from the front, this hoof is not a good clean line. This is not even the shape of the hairline from here to the ground around the foot. So you want to look at a foot standing on the ground, and is it square, level? Does this have a good clean flow to the heel? Does this have a good clean flow to the heel? What has happened with this foot, and you can see from the underside how much pull has been on that foot. This has pulled this forward, and you see the separation here, and that's pulled the heels in back behind it, narrowed up the foot, and collapsed the heels in. Okay, we're going to take a look at some more feet. I've got a few good little collection here. Here's one where we have actually trimmed part of it, and I'm talking about bringing the horses back, and this is probably a little more trim than might be normal for a horse, but to show a point, what we're trying to do is get the base under the bone column instead of the base out in front of the bone column. Get a picture that feet end up going forward as opposed to coming straight down. If you notice on this longer heel, it comes up, and there's actually at the tip of my finger a turn point where it starts to roll forward. And if this heel gets longer and longer and longer and weaker, it will go continually go forward. And that's where you get these heels that are up here in the middle of the foot. Also with the front of the foot, this will stretch further forward, and they can drive each other. You notice one side has been trimmed, one side hadn't. And if you're looking at this foot from the front, you see again in the hairline, there's stress in the hairline where this foot has been stressed out of shape. You see in the heel where this foot has been stressed out of shape.
We'll be right back.
And here again, another actual hoof we have that you can see looking straight down the foot, a physical twist in the hoof itself. Now, one thing that took me a long time as a farrier is figuring out the feet did twist, that they're not solid as a block of wood. Something you can do at home is take you a styrofoam cup and make you a hoof cut out, and it's real fun to play with. But feet are very movable. They move in, out, up, and down, and they form to the ground. It's natural for them to do that. Okay, because of uneven pressure, because of uneven impact, could be driven by bone column alignment, we'll talk about that later. That can cause twist, torque, pressure, because of a farrier being a little off with a rasp and not being quite on the money with things. That can be, cause a twist in the hoof capsule. All right, if you look at your hoof capsule, if you've made one at home, you can put pressure on the front wall and see how that drags the heels right in behind it. Okay, that's very much what happens with the real hoof. Actually, I think a styrofoam cup does better than this piece of I think this was a supplement bucket. If you have pressure on the heels, and the heels are starting to fold under, see how they fold under, and it drives the front right out in front of the horse? Now, our biggest problem, one of the biggest problems we run into over and over, are the long toe, low heel horses, which are just this hoof or this hoof. Either way you want to get there. Now, a few things can cause that are the body locking up, the rider, saddle not fitting, making the body lock up, and the horse, sitting down on his shoulders too hard can drive the foot out. One thing that we do, let's talk about the hairline. Even on the live horse where you do have hair, which I know those guys are no longer using these parts, and they've given their lives for other things. But you can take this horse, if you don't see it, you can actually palpate around here and feel hard points in that hoof. Now, as a farrier trimming that thing, we were talking about the weight-bearing pillows and checking that. What I would do is check the weight-bearing pillow length. I'm going to pick up this piece of a bucket again, and if I have a twisted hoof and I trim, I get my heels the same length, my front of my foot on both weight-bearing pillows the same length. You may have a hoof that looks something like this, and the trim follows that, and you say, okay, my God, how do you put a shoe on that? You can't put a shoe on that. Well, you really can, but you're not going to put it on immediately. As the horse stands on this, this will remold. And there are times we'll set a shoe on there, tack it with a couple nails just to give it a steady base to stand on, and it will mold down into that shoe. And you'll find out some real strange things happen. Horses that stood narrow-based or odd on a foot will stand more square on it. Some horses where joints have been torqued into an odd position, sometimes you'll see some of that change. Now, there's a difference between horses' joints that have been torqued into an odd position and just plain crooked legs. Now, if we have legs that are just out and out crooked, yeah, there are certain stresses that are going to be caused because we have a joint that's malformed and it's here or it's here, and it's going to do some odd things to the pressure in the hoof. Now, if we've had a horse that's foot that's twisted because, well, maybe the impact's been wrong, maybe the rider threw it off, maybe a lot of things can throw it off, but that hoof is growing in an odd pattern and it is twisting and it's pulling the leg over, and if this would be a horse where if you take an x-ray on joint space, you'd probably have a closed joint space on one side. Also, I do have a couple of x-rays that would be interesting to look at that we'll look at today along with these hoofs. I mean, right now I know I'm kind of bouncing through some things pretty quick. But part of the key to a hoof is getting good circulation in a hoof. A mechanically stressed hoof forced into a wrong place, you're going to have limited circulation. It does not help your foot to necessarily have a long toe out there. And you get into some things, you hear people talk about hoof angles, hoof angles, hoof angles. And my hoof horse should be at 53, 56, whatever. You can't dictate the hoof angles. You can't dictate the hoof angles from side to side. Because what we found by looking at these coffin bones is that coffin bones are not at one set angle. And those coffin bones are going to dictate a lot. That's where it comes back to this base, getting the base where it should be. That will pretty well take care of things. Some coffin bones may be anywhere from 45 to 60 degrees in angle, and there's variations other than that. Average seems to be around about 50 degrees on most horses, give or take. The sole depth under the horse is another issue that is a big problem, not just the long toe load heeled horse, where the thickness of the sole is not what ought to be. Looking at the wild horses, and I've had the pleasure of spending some time messing around with some of these guys and looking at a lot of the research they've done on them, they have much thicker live sole than the domestic horses. A lot of those horses will have what I'm seeing around 10 millimeters of sole as far as the live sole. Now the actual hard sole, they may have 15 millimeters, 10 to 15 millimeters of that or more of good, healthy, hard sole. Now we're working on domestic horses. I've seen many of them. They come in there in trouble. We've got good x-rays. We're measuring on the x-rays. We've got a horse with 7 millimeters of sole grand total from the coffin bone to the outside hard sole. Now if the wild horses have 10 millimeters of live tissue in there to have good, healthy circulation, horse with 7 millimeters all grand total, that horse is in trouble. Another thing you'll see on these x-rays is the fact of if this wall is pulling away, that live tissue connects to the hoof wall, connects between the coffin bone and the hoof wall, goes together. It's like fingers. It's kind of like fingers. When you get the mechanical stress on that dorsal wall and it's pulled away, this pulls tighter and tighter and tighter. It's like Japanese fingers. You'll see on our veniogram shots that we'll look at here shortly that how much difference that shows as far as limited circulation in the front of the foot. What this is an x-ray where they've injected dye, and it actually shows the circulation through the foot. Now if you notice right here we've got the dorsal hoof wall, and that's one of those long toe, low heeled horses we were talking about earlier. Now if you look what's happening here, you don't see a whole lot of blood flow down the front of the foot. You see a pretty good bit here and up through the bottom of the foot, but you see this waterfall and what comes in through the front of the foot. Now this is where I was talking about that stress chokes off the blood. Now, another thing you look at on these things is how much sole depth we've got. Now, we usually measure in millimeters off the tip of the coffin bone right there to the bottom of that sole plane. You've got about 16 millimeters. And we were talking about earlier, this horse is having 10 millimeters of pure blood circulation on those wild horses, and around the tip of that coffin bone, you had to go to about 4 millimeters. Now we're going to look at the body. And we've got a little pony skeleton here that's been around and helped us a bit at some of these clinics, help us see what's going on. And I always like looking at the hind end of the horse because, I think movement starts from the hind end. One thing that you will look at is like looking at the hoof angle and all this. We'll talk about the hoof angle. Now, if a horse's hoof angle is too low, and when the horse moves out, you'll watch a big collapse in the pasture. When that happens, it'll drive the horse's body out behind itself, up, pelvis up, and it'll push the horse onto the front end, much like what happens with the skeleton when you pick the pelvis up. Same thing on the back end. If the timing is too slow, too low an angle, and the horse having a hard time coming over that long lever, that can also drive the shoulders back under the horse and push the horse's back end out from under it. One thing I'd like for you to do on your horse at home is have somebody pick up the leg and lay your hand in here and feel how far that scapula moves. Understand the scapula on a horse is not tied to the body through a joint. It's in a sling of muscle and tendons and ligaments, and it actually floats. The actual rotation point of the front leg is at about here. So as this leg goes forward, this moves back. That's one reason a little later we're going to look at saddles. Saddles become so important because as far as your horse getting extension and reaching out, if that saddle is blocking this, your horse can't reach forward. If your horse can't reach forward, it can't get the front end out of the way fast enough for the hind end to come under, and you won't get your horse to come into collection and move correct. If you're trying to work dressage, if you're trying to work jumping, if you're trying to work reining horses, well, most any discipline of sport, when you need power out of your horse, they need to be able to bring their back up to be able to move. Dolly's helped us out a lot with this sort of understanding, help getting some of those points across. One thing we'll need to do is, with our horses at home, look down their back, look at the top of the scapulas and make sure the back's even, look at the pelvis and make sure the pelvis is even, and make sure you got a nice straight back. We were talking earlier about the hoof. Well, as looking from the ground up, we don't need to overlook the leg because we haven't really talked about that much, but looking at the shoulder needs to come out of the body, come down through the elbow joint, come down straight through the knee, bone should center of the knee, come out the bottom of the knee center, go into the fetlock center, come out the bottom center, and on into the hoof. Everything should be a good, clean, straight line. Have people call, especially with babies, talk about, well, my baby toes out. Well, if you look at these young babies, their shoulders are pretty aimed out, and they're standing like this so they don't fall over. Gives them a nice wide base. And as the shoulder comes around, the legs come straighter. Same thing with the hip. You need to look up at the top of the hip, follow everything down, make sure everything's in a straight line, right through the stifle, right through the hock, right on down into the hoof. Now, if we got a horse's leg that's deviated a bit, we could have a twisted cannon, we could have a lot of things go on where the bone's not straight or the joint's not straight. Maybe things don't line up quite right. If that's causing uneven pressure on the ground, that will cause some of these uneven growth patterns. If we've got a horse that's standing in an odd position because his back hurts, that can cause some of these uneven growth patterns. Now, we'll talk about later saddle and rider and everything else. One of the big things I will push people to do with the horses when we're working on them is stretch your horse, loosen your horse up, get your horse into a good fitness program. When we get on horses, they've got to be strong enough to carry our weight and get their back up where they can move correctly. Now, as we're starting horses, we need to keep that in mind too. Now, normally the way we shoe horses, when we start them under saddle, they're getting a little tender-footed, we throw front shoes on them. Well, it's one of the first things we just taught your horse to do. Lean on his front end. We protect his front, we didn't protect the back. Well, front feet feel good, my back feet are sore, you're on my back, so I'm going to lay on them like this, and I'm going to learn to move around like that because it's just easy. Now, to get your horse where he can make these great athletic maneuvers and do beautiful big things, well, we kind of need him working back here when he's under load. Sure, they can stand around like this all day, but we need him where he can work right here under load. There's a lot of easy ways to do that. Exercise program. Now, I don't believe a horse should be shod until they're at a point in life they're mature enough they need shoes, which means pretty much fully developed horse. If it was my horse, I probably wouldn't put shoes on them until they're 4 or 5 years old, and hopefully never have to. And don't think that I'm trying to advocate that you should shoe all horses. What we need to do is take a look at our environment and a lot of other things and decide, what are we doing that we need to keep so many horses in shoes. Horses that are in the wild come in and we don't have to shoe them. We talked a little bit about their feet, and I have had the pleasure of messing with some of the Mustangs, and I've got a couple right now. Now, no, we don't shoe our Mustangs because their foot has grown and is developed and it has big, large lateral cartilages and plantar cushion, and the bones are developed well, and they'll take the stress. They got a lot of depth to the foot and a lot of thickness in the sole, and they can run up and down on rocks and everything else. Now, the few reasons you might need to shoe a horse, okay, we've got one that mechanically for some reason needs some help. Hopefully we never got our horse in shape where they need help mechanically. You may be doing a job that's not 100% natural to a horse, and yeah, we need to do something to help them along with that. But one of the best things we can do is keep our horses fit and moving. A lot of not having enough foot has to do with blood flow. Blood flow is everything for growing a foot. How many times the heart beats. Horses being in a natural environment, being on the rock, being on the shell, being out moving. Okay, now we're going to take a look back at the live horse. Now we've looked at the legs, we've looked at the hoof, we've looked at the leg alignment, and we worked up to looking at the body. One thing you can look at any horse standing out in the field, look at the way they're muscled, look at what's tight. If you've got a real hard locked shoulder, it'll show in the muscling. If you've got a horse that's leaning on the front end, again, it will show in the muscling. If you got undeveloped muscles on one side or the other, it'll show you your horse might be uneven. And remember we were talking about the shoulder alignment and the hip alignment, looking down the horse's back. This is something you can do with your horses at home. Something that will be real good is step up on a step stool if your horse will let you and look down their back. Look into their shoulders and look at their neck and see if their back's straight, see if the shoulders are square. Pay attention to the muscling and step back and see if the pelvis is square and if the horse is muscled even from side to side. And this is going to tell us a whole lot as to how your horse has been traveling, carrying weight, and handling himself moving. As we were talking about earlier with the skeleton, looking at the horse, we've looked at her standing, we want to see her walk off and move her a little bit, and we'll look at the same signs with her walking or trotting. In the back end, we'll pay attention to this area, the stifle. If we get a big dimple in there, the leg can be coming too straight. If we're getting a lot of drop in the pastern, some of the same thing. Leg can drive too straight, drives the pelvis up, and it can throw the horse onto the front end. Another sign, if you're watching the front end, if that pastern is dropping hard, the knee's hyperextended, she's dumping on her front end real hard. Very typical problem with domestic horses. Go ahead. Okay, another view of a horse. We've seen the horse from the side. We always want to see what the horse is doing in a straight line from behind. Keys to look for from the back will be watch down the hind leg, watch the hocks. If your hocks are wrenching or twisting, that will be an indication something's not quite where it ought to be. Another indication is watch the points of the hip and see if the hip's staying square. Okay, then that'll give us some idea how well the horse's back end's coming together. And we also want to look at all these angles we're looking at a trot and all the way through the gates. As she comes back and look back towards us, want to watch, are the legs coming through in a straight line? Is everything moving directly in flow? Or is she swinging in, swinging out? And also notice all the way through to her back feet and see, is the back end tracking in line with the front end, or is it to one side or the other?
Hi, I'm Ray Morris. I'm here today to show you a massage technique that I've developed. It will make it easy for you to work on your horse. It's easy to learn and easy to use. Okay, then we'll start on the trapezius. The things I use my hands. What I use primarily are my knuckles. This area of my knuckles, the flats of my fingers here. I use a thumb knuckle, like that, or finger, like that. Or you can use the heel of your hand. I'll show you how to use these in different areas. The most important thing is to have some rhythm. When you stand here with your horse, use your feet, push with your feet, and use all your body to get some rhythm. So we're using, I'll show you very slowly, we put the knuckles on the horse, keep your wrists soft, and you get a rotating motion like that. So you're moving your knuckles, you're working your knuckles into the tissue. So his skin on top, I can move the muscle underneath while leaving the fingers, knuckles, still on the skin surface. Like that. I hope you're able to see that. That's important. Don't scrub on the coat, you'll take the skin off your hands. Use his skin to move the tissue underneath, like that. So it's a crawl. Keep the wrists supple. And what the horses like is rhythm. So at all times, keep good rhythm with what you're doing. A horse that's a little uptight will like a fast rhythm. A horse that's pretty laid back will like a slower rhythm. This horse actually likes a slower rhythm. Just like that. We work across the muscle fibre. The fibre in this muscle is running like this, up there, we're working across, like this. What you need from what you should take from today is the massage technique that I've shown you, which is easy to do and easy to learn. You should be able to affect the way your horse goes a lot and help him out a lot. Get a much more athletic horse. So all I can say to you is I hope you've enjoyed this tape and I hope you have a lot of success with massaging your horse.
Thank you for joining Mike Stein and his special guests, Ray Morris, international equine therapist and saddle fitter, for Horse Sense in Horse Care, the show dedicated to helping you improve your horse's health care and lifetime performance from foal to old.
Thank you, and come back and be with us next time.
Welcome to Horse Sense in Horse Care, the show dedicated to helping you improve your horse's health care and lifetime performance through common sense preventative maintenance. Watch now as our professionals in whole horse management tell you what to look for to head off trouble and preserve your horse from foal to old. Our specialists will discuss horse care from the ground up with these topics: correct hoof inspection to help avoid future malformations, examining legs and body for proper alignment, checking body balance for better performance, using equine massage therapy for healthy muscle relaxation, correct saddle fitting for a more comfortable ride, proper bridle fitting for mouth protection and ease of control, centered rider balance for better performance and back protection. And now, to help you help your horse, here is your host, Mike Stein, registered journeyman farrier, Phoenix Award winner for research and innovation, member Guild of Professional Farriers, and SHOE Educator of the Year.
On today's show, we're going to have international saddle fitter and massage therapist Ray Morris, and we're going to have Janie Smith, equine educator, and we're going to be giving you some tips to help you with maintaining your horse for a lifetime from foal to old.
Okay, then we'll start on the trapezius. The things I use my hands. What I use primarily are my knuckles, this area of my knuckles, the flats of my fingers here. I use a thumb knuckle, like that, or finger, like that. Or you can use the heel of your hand. I'll show you how to use these in different areas. The most important thing is to have some rhythm. When you stand here with your horse, use your feet, push with your feet, and use all your body to get some rhythm. So we're using, I'll show you very slowly, we put the knuckles on the horse, keep your wrists soft, and you get a rotating motion like that. So you're moving your knuckles, you're working your knuckles into the tissue. So his skin on top, I can move the muscle underneath while leaving the fingers, knuckles, still on the skin surface. Like that. I hope you're able to see that. That's important. Don't scrub on the coat, you'll take the skin off your hands. Use his skin to move the tissue underneath, like that. So it's a crawl. Keep the wrists supple. And what the horses like is rhythm. So at all times, keep good rhythm with what you're doing. A horse that's a little uptight will like a fast rhythm. A horse that's pretty laid back will like a slower rhythm. This horse actually likes a slower rhythm. Just like that. We work across the muscle fibre. The fibre in this muscle is running like this, up there. We're working across, like this. If it's a little firm, and your horse flinches away from that, try backing off a little bit with the pressure. If we work on a pressure system from 1 to 10, start at 5. Maybe go back to 4. If your horse gets you to back off a little more than 4, increase the pressure, go to 6. You may not like that very much at all, then go back to 5. and he'll really appreciate that and stand still for you. Now we're working back here in the trapezius thoracica. This is running over this horse shortly, briefly. I'd spend a little more time than this if I was really working on him hard. But it's important to be able to use both hands. Can you guys see how my knuckles are working there? Forward is back onto the flats of my fingers there, and I can crawl forward. I'll put that in slow motion for you. That's how I'm working. And keeping good rhythm. It's important with your horse that you keep your other hand still. As a passive hand, it's communication with the horse, helps to keep him a little relaxed with what you're doing. I'm following along this trapezius thoracica through here, right back to when it finishes, to where it finishes back here, in like that. You can use your thumb knuckle in there. Just work your thumb knuckle in. Good boy. Okay. Now, we have two options here. We can use the knuckles and working in here. Good boy. Remember, keep your body moving. Use the rhythm. Don't just stand there like a statue and move your arm, because pretty soon this part of your arm, your shoulder, is going to kill you. So you want to keep your whole body moving. Keep that rhythm up. The horse will start to appreciate it. If one arm gets tired, start to use the other. We can work through like this. Now I'm not rubbing across his coat. If you start going like that across his coat or scrubbing, you're going to take, as I said, take the skin off your hands, off your knuckles.
We'll be right back. Improve your horse's healthcare with common sense tips from these national specialists' new video, Horse Sense in Horse Care from Foal to Old. See how to head off trouble through hoof inspection, legs, body alignment, massage, saddle fitting, and... You're watching Horse Sense in Horse Care from Foal to Old.
What I do now is I specialise in saddle fitting, and I do a lot of clinics teaching saddle fit and massage throughout Australia, New Zealand and the USA. A big part of what I do is teaching people how to get their horse working again properly, correctly. We have a saddle here. This is a pretty nice sort of saddle. I like this type of saddle. We have a lot of clearance through here, lots of width in the gullet. The important thing to look at, the first thing, is plenty of width. This is the point of the tree where my hands are. You can feel that under any saddle. You should be able to. That's important, that's wide enough to fit your horse's back. We'll look at that pretty shortly. It's important under here, we have a good panel through here, lots of weight distribution through here, good panel at the back, and we have a big, wide channel. That's really important, this channel's wide enough. I have to be able to get at least 3 of my fingers through that channel to fit his back. This saddle has that, and generally I think they're pretty great. Okay, we'll put this on his back. A lot of people would put the saddle there, right in behind. There's a lot written now about being behind the shoulder. This is behind the shoulder. There's the back of the scapula there, running down there. The saddle sitting right in this place. Where the saddle should sit is back here, like that. Here's the back of the scapula. This is the front of the saddle. Here is the point of the tree. This is what causes most of the problem. We have the seat has a good balance here. We have the panel sitting well on the back. What happens with the back of the scapula, once he takes a stride forward, you just lift his leg, good boy. This is where the back of the scapula's come to, and he hasn't extended at all. So, whatever we do, we need to leave that clear. And if you don't believe this is where you should sit, your centre should be there. That's where you'd sit on that horse bareback. And the girth points come down through here and drop those in a line. This is where you want to be girthing up in there. Not in the hair behind the elbow. You're going to drag the saddle forward, the girth and the saddle, everything is going to pinch him in the triceps down there. And that's going to aggravate that muscle. It's going to aggravate the serratus ventralis, and you're going to pinch him under here. If the rider bounces in the saddle, as I showed you on his back before, he's going to you're going to hollow his back, like that. If his rider sits right back in the cantle, we don't want the saddle sitting cantle base like that. The back of the saddle is going to sit into the horse and drop him a little behind. We have plenty of room with the saddle there. We have lots of room. There's his last rib there. He's still strong. The only weak spot is from here back to here, in this lumbar region of his back. That's the only weak area in his back. What you need from what you should take from today is the massage technique that I've shown you, which is easy to do and easy to learn. You should be able to affect the way your horse goes a lot and help him out a lot. Get a much more athletic horse. So all I can say to you is I hope you've enjoyed this tape and I hope you have a lot of success with massaging your horse. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Janie Smith and I'm an equine educator. And I'm here to show you today about the action of bits and explain proper bridling fit, and just a little bit about what different bits do. First thing you want to do is put the reins over the horse's head so that when you take the halter off, he won't run away. Gently place the bit against the horse's teeth. If you bang them in the mouth too much, they'll move away from you and make it hard to do your job. Always ears forward in the headstall. You don't want to pinch these nerves here. First thing you need to check about a bridle and whether it fits correctly or not is the throat latch. You want to make sure that when you tighten the throat latch, you've got some depth and room here at this is the throat latch of the horse. Make sure you have plenty of room so that they won't be restricted. For proper bridle or headstall fit, if you use a hackamore, you want 2 fingers distance from the horse's eye. You want to make sure that the bit leaves room for your finger beside the mouth so it won't restrict or pinch the lips. You also want to make sure if you use any kind of curb chain that it's loose here against the horse's jaw. You don't want restriction when you're trying to get forward movement. Want to make sure the bit's fitted properly both width-wise and distance-wise on the headstall. Make sure there's 1 wrinkle here, just very lightly up. Otherwise, your bit will drop down and interfere with the horse's teeth. Too tight, you're always saying whoa when you want to go. Want to make sure your brow band is wide enough through here so it doesn't interfere or come up and pinch the horse's ear like that. This particular bit is a Western curb bit, and it has a high port. So this would be a pretty severe bit, have a lot of stopping or turning power, very sensitive to the horse's mouth, actually well fitted. Bits are measured from here to here. And when you measure, you want to make sure that you include this distance, horse's mouth from here to here, plus 1 finger width. The next thing we're going to look at is a mechanical hackamore. First, I'm going to show you how to remove a bridle or a bit from your horse's mouth. Always push the headstall off over the horse's ears and then hesitate and let the horse drop the bit. If you want to avoid head shyness in your horse, you'll always let them give up the bit. Reins over the head. This is a mechanical hackamore. They should be fitted in some ways like a bridle. The throat latch stays loose and relaxed. This one's actually a little tight. Good distance from the eye. The hackamore has to be 2 to 3 fingers below the cheekbone and above the lips of the horse. You want to make sure that your curb chain is again loose, just like on a bridle. Now the difference in bridles versus hackamores. And actually both of these are very severe. Bits actually come in different severities, and they range from a side pull, which is used for a Western horse, which has no bit but also no leverage. These are leverage. They give you a lot of pull. To mullen mouth, which is just a straight bar bit, to snaffles or jointed bits, to bits with high ports. Ports are more severe than straight bars. Leverage, more severe than joints. I'm getting a little, okay, so both of these bridles actually have a lot of leverage. Nothing wrong with the equipment, you just have to be a skilled rider to use these.
We'll be right back. Improve your horse's health care with common sense tips from these national specialists' new video, Horse Sense in Horse Care from Foal to Old. See how to head off trouble through hoof inspection, legs, body alignment, massage, saddle fitting, and more. You're watching Horse Sense in Horse Care from Foal to Old.
We're here with Linda and Lady, and we're going to talk a little bit about rider interference, or how to stay out of the way of the rider. So I'm going to ask Linda to step up in the saddle. And the first thing you have to look at as far as rider interference or non-interference goes is, does the saddle fit the rider? And Ray does a wonderful job of fitting saddles to horses. We know that part of it's been eliminated, so now we want to see how the saddle fits Linda. Actually, this saddle looks pretty good on Linda. From here to here, it's not too bad, but based on what a rider's good position is, stirrups are hung a little bit in front. So that's going to make it real hard for Linda to stay up and back. And we'll show you why in just a minute. Good rider position, and Linda, if you'll just relax, and hopefully Lady will relax for us, is, I'm going to start at the top of her head and work my way to her feet. All right. Chin lifted, just a little, nice and relaxed, neck relaxed, shoulders relaxed, back relaxed right here between the shoulder blades, rib cage lifted slightly so that joint is open, pelvis straight up and down this way, not tilted forward, good girl, not tilted forward this way or tilted backwards, rolled too deeply under. Nice relaxed thigh to the knee, no tension in the knee, relaxed calf and ankle, ball of the foot only in the stirrup. So basically what you want is a nice, good, upright, natural posture with no tension anywhere, because the tension from the rider is actually, it always should be deliberate, tension. Tension from a calf asks the horse to walk off. Tension from a rein asks the horse to stand still, or to stop, or to slow down. So that's good basic rider position. If her saddle, let her leg hang a little farther back. Should have ear, shoulder, pelvis, back of the heel in line. Okay, so now we're going to ask Linda to walk off. And you just stay nice and relaxed up there, Linda, and breathe. And what you want to do is try to maintain that good, basic, relaxed position. And Linda, if you'd make a left turn and circle around us as your horse moves underneath you. It's very difficult to talk about rider interference without understanding how horses think. For us to stay out of their way, first we have to understand that they're pressure-driven animals. They move away from pressure. Linda's horse is moving. She puts pressure on the calf, her horse walks forward. She puts pressure on the nose, the horse stops moving forward or goes away from that pressure. So, not only does the horse as a whole being move away from pressure, but individual pieces of that horse move away from pressure. We interfere the most by closing down the back end of the horse. Okay, so, Linda, if you'd walk off and sit a little forward seat with your pelvis rotated from the top frontward, see how resistant her horse becomes to moving off. Her tail is swishing. What Linda is telling this horse by leaning forward is move, but don't move your back legs. Now, change your pelvis, Linda. See how quiet the horse became. Her head visibly relaxed. And then, Linda, if you would, pick her up to a trot, maybe to a trot circle around me. And let's get your pelvis underneath you, straight up and down, nice and relaxed, and give your rein. Good girl. And relax your body. And put a little bit of left leg against her and ask her to come around quietly. There you go. And see if your horse will allow you to drop your rein. Just a little. Good. Good. Very good. Okay, now, Did you feel her change at all when you changed here?
Very much.
Okay, very good.
She relaxed out and went slower and responded.
It's much easier for her to go if you let all of her go, not her back end. Okay, second major way we interfere. First is with our pelvis and shutting down our seat by either leaning our pelvis forward like this or roll under too much by dropping our rib cage and closing here. Second way we interfere too much is with our rein. Again, a horse will not move into a closed pressure. So if you have a bridle like this with a lot of leverage, nothing wrong with the equipment as long as you have a schooled hand. But if you use this, then she needs no pressure here. Now it's perfectly okay for you to say, slow down and give. But you need to make sure what you do is give, because a horse learns from the release of pressure, and she'll relax. So let's try it again, and this time keep your position, which is lovely. Keep it right, and let's give her the rein, and when she's upset or not relaxed, ask her quietly to slow, and then give it to her. And let's see if we can get her shoulder to free up. Stay looking up. Stay breathing deeply. Try to keep your rib cage lifted and your pelvis straight up and down. And Linda, if you take her up to trot and try the same exercise, I think you'll find that. And now if she gets too quick or she feels tense to you, pick your hand up and then drop the rein. Good. Good, and stay looking up. That breaks the line of your body. Feel your horse. Feel your horse. Now, she just sped up on her own, so pick up your rein. You're doing a great job. And then give it away. Good girl. Okay, so basically, in the time we have, what I want to make sure comes across real clear is that there are two primary ways in the saddle that we interfere, and that would be our body closing down the back end of the horse, our hands closing down the shoulder. Nose is not really important. A good rider should ride the body of the horse with their body. Should be able to control your horse with your body. And you want to, basically, I know I do, I want to have my horse by his mind. I don't want to have him by my hand. So, all right, walk off. So the whole goal is to create a relaxed, quiet, natural, willing, working partner. They're stronger that way. And they stay stronger a lot longer. Okay, so it's to our advantage and to our horse's advantage, because we want them to have long, healthy lives, to learn how to stay out of their way, and to teach ourselves to open our bodies up and go with the horse, follow the horse, rather than to interfere with movement from either the front or the back legs. You put all the pieces together right, and you're up there and you're part of the horse. You get tight or tense in any way, or you get out of alignment and let your skeleton block your horse somewhere, then your horse has to move in a natural manner that will actually shorten her useful life. So go off and enjoy your horse. Nice job.
Thank you for joining Mike Stein and his special guests, Ray Morris, international equine therapist and saddle fitter, and Janie Smith, equine educator, for Horse Sense in Horse Care, the show dedicated to helping you improve your horse's health care and lifetime performance from foal to old.
Thank you, and come back and be with us next time.
Stay tuned for Horse Sense in Horse Care from Foal to Old Part 1 to learn more about correct hoof inspection, legs and body alignment, checking body balance, and equine massage.